there's no denying that the build-to-rent market is fast becoming a power player in the UK property scene. Knight Frank put its value at £56 billion last year and projects that that figure could double by 2028 to £102 billion. Manchester has a lot of these projects, as we can see just by looking outside the windows, but should developers be looking outside the city centre?
We're already seeing that step turn already in Salford. We've got a lot of build-to-rent schemes and people around the table who've delivered that for us. It's been predominantly of what we call the city centre fringe of Salford. But having said that, there is active engagement of moving into town centres and developers actively taking forward build-to-rent. We've got a number of town centres across Salford who all serve a very different local catchment area. So it's all about having the right vision and strategy and plan in place in taking developments forward that will benefit and be really crucial for the residents in them areas.
We've seen really proactive local authorities that are investing heavily in towns off the back of levelling up to retain talent and provide, I suppose, a better mix of community, a more diverse community that's not just young professionals, that provides offerings for people that are growing older and people that have families as well. So I think that mixed community is something that we see as being sometimes more deliverable in town centre environments than purely urban environments.
Just kind of building on that, I think build to rent is seen at the moment as skyscrapers in the sky, and that's not what we want in our towns, well, not all of them anyway. I think there is a place for a smaller scale apartment build to rent, but I think we need to think a little bit wider than that. We think about, can you look at family accommodation on some of our suburb sites, which would actually bring those sites forward, because as you said earlier, the investments there for large scale build to rent, and then bringing in the affordability mix and making sure that when we're granting permissions for those types of buildings, you're not just looking at the open market, we're actually securing some affordable build to rent within that as well, and that will really get that mixed communities going.
I think for GM as a whole, for Manchester to keep growing at the pace that it has been, pushing development out to those satellite towns is really important, because the city centre, it is overheating. There is that massive mismatch between demand and supply, and we see that those satellite towns are the perfect solution to that. That you can alleviate some of the pressure on the infrastructure in central Manchester, and you can kind of provide a better equality of wealth across GM by encouraging people to consider moving from central Manchester out into those satellite towns. But you've got to have that aspirational residential offer.
People want to live where people want to live, and Greater Manchester has changed substantially in this period. We've seen huge sort of increase in vibrancy in these local communities, and we're bringing back brownfield land that was sort of underdeveloped, underused, and we're bringing it back, and that's having a positive impact on the communities themselves and the high streets as well.
I think the build-to-rent opportunity for places like Bury has potential to change our demographic as well, because we've got an older population, and we need to do something as far as housing is concerned to attract a younger demographic and to retain the young people within Bury, because we don't have that sort of mix of housing that currently that makes people want to stay.
We're working with Trafford Council, who are in joint ventures with developers in Altrincham and Stretford, and Altringham's a great example of a facility, the kind of new market that's generated this kind of vitality and attracted people there, and now the council are helping to bring forward residential development as part of the kind of regeneration of the town centre, which was terrible and is, going to be a great place to live. It's really attractive, or will be really attractive, I think.
I feel like we're building more sustainably than we have before, so that the homes that we get at the future will hopefully be more energy efficient and things like that. And BTR has a lot of opportunities to go forward in that direction. Is that something that developers are doing out of the goodness of their heart? Is it a push from local authorities, or is it just trying to think like this is what tenants want now?
From a investments and a buyer's point of view now, we're having questions that even 7 years ago wasn't on the agenda. What is the sustainability? What is the footprint? What is the 5-year plan as moving to more greener materials and everything else. And it's not so much a box ticking things for us. I think it's more an adoption of social conscience across the board for all of us that we've got to start putting into our business plans now as a standard.
I think the sort of energy crisis and the cost of living crisis has sort of absolutely accelerated that sort of tangible benefit to building with sustainable technologies. Also, obviously, you've got your future home standards coming in with the national house builders, which will obviously get rid of gas boilers in new builds and stuff like that. So that regulation obviously will ultimately drive change. But definitely the cost of living crisis has put a sort of a magnifying glass on that piece particularly.
We would say the benefits of BTR is about bringing in a more diverse population to a town, especially younger people, getting them active in there, and providing a broader mix so it allows people to kind of choose where they want to live. Is there any other good benefit of BTR, or is it just more housing?
I think maybe one thing we didn't touch on is sort of the build to rent market as putting customer, client, tenant at the forefront of it, and really listening to what they want. And that's a bit of an opportunity, I think, in terms of it's not just about, we talked a lot about amenity spaces and space and what physically people want, but what about the experience we talk about in our world, client experience? That should be the same in that market, and I think that's an opportunity.
It's accountability as well from a landlord perspective. Like, we have a Trustpilot 24/7 communication. We're giving people, and it's that customer thing you spoke about, Gemma, we're giving them ability to have a say in how they live and a bit of security in the option of renting, which is a conscious choice for a lot of people now compared to what it was probably 5-10 years ago.
I think it's also about the flexibility of the offer in the market as well. So if there are those challenges people are having, it's about making sure that the offer is there, which gives a real good choice for people to the alternative, because a lot of the private sector rental is pretty poor at the moment, and this gives the opportunity to have that real good choice, which isn't seen as not as good as buying. And I think that's the key.
It's that overarching Greater Manchester offer. So we've all sat here today and talked about our own kind of locations and what we want to see, but we're still hitting the same challenges moving forward. So it is that kind of Greater Manchester Strategic Growth Programme that we all need to be championing. And then you can see the diversity of communities moving. We just want to retain them within the region. So whilst we're all sat here, and I'd love them to retain within Salford, retaining them in the GM region is what I see we need to do moving forward.
I think it's a key component for a successful town centre regeneration scheme as part of a mixed bag of uses that's appropriate to each town centre in its own right.
GM needs a demographic shift to alleviate some of that pressure on the infrastructure and the housing market in central Manchester, and I think the GM towns are the perfect way to do that in a sustainable manner that facilitates growth for GM for the next couple of decades.